Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest webinar in the IR series, How to Measure Customer Experience in a Digital World, 3 Pillars and 3 Perspectives. My name is Stephen Elliott. I look after marketing for much of the IR world, and I've had a fair bit of experience, but your main speaker today will be Mike Burke, who is an absolute guru in this area and has worked with IR in the testing solutions area for over 17 years. He's based out of our US office, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy his content today. As I said, he's a guru. He's delivered this quite a few times to some great feedback, and we're pleased and proud to be able to present this in the region throughout Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and some of Asia. Today we'll just go over what customer experience is, and I'll hand over to Mike. Just a quick notice that if you do have any feedback or any questions, please navigate your way through the interface to get those questions to us, and we'll have time at the end to get them over to you. Thanks, Mike. Over to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for the introduction there, Stephen. And welcome everybody who's been able to join us today. Really appreciate you taking time, and look forward to sharing some thoughts about customer experience in real life and what that means to the contact center and the technology of the contact center. One of the things that I'd like to get into today is what does customer experience really mean? What are the elements of customer experience, and then how do you go after measuring it so that you can do something about what you've learned and have an impact on customers with what you've learned. So that having been said, Steve and I were chatting a little bit here before the session started, and customer experience really is paramount, and I think that's been true for the last several years. I'd say about every 2 or 3, or 1 out of every 2 or 3 emails that I get has got something to do with customer experience, and of course it's the domain that I worked in for the last 15 to 20 years. But what exactly is customer experience, and what do you say it is, and what might your customers say it is? We all agree that it's important, but there's different ways to look at it. And that's what we're going to be thinking about today. So customers, what do they care about when they join or choose to interact with your brand through the contact center? They're really not thinking about your technology. They're thinking about themselves and what they want to do right now. What's on their minds is what they've got to do in terms of paying a bill or finding out when the plane's going to leave, and the fact that they've got something that they want to get done right now, and what matters to them is whether or not your system does what it is that they want to do right now and does it efficiently. And they're doing their everyday tasks. They're researching about things that they might want to buy. Maybe they're paying, as I said, paying their bills or whatever, and they might be looking to get help when they need it, and over whatever channel it is that they've chosen to interact on. And what they're thinking is, I'm busy. I've got a lot to do. I want to get something done quickly and effectively. I don't have time to try and figure out whether or not I want to press 7 or 9 for that. And if I press the right thing, I want to make sure that I get there. And what's important is that your technology really does what it's supposed to do and do it effectively and efficiently, so that people can actually get through their day-to-day tasks and not be bothered by things. And so, if you think about what that comes down to in terms of technology, the way customers experience the contact center is that it's there when they want to use it, and when they need it, it does the things that they want it to do, and it does it. The contact center technology does all that efficiently and easily, so that people don't have to restart things. And so that is what I propose as the 3 pillars of customer experience. It's availability, functionality, and performance. And those are the 3 items that need to be measured so that you can manage them within the customer environment. Now, the real question then becomes, how do you measure that? Well, if you think about it, one of the things that you can do is you can ask your customers, what do they experience? Because they know, of course, they're the ones who are trying to do the things that they do in everyday life, and sentiment and the raw element of experience is really important, and that's where the voice of the customer set of metrics comes in. People who people will respond to post-call Q&A surveys or to Survey Monkeys or pop-ups or email surveys that show up, and that gives you the common customer experience metrics that we've all come to know and love over the last 20 years: customer satisfaction and customer effort and Net Promoter Score. And those fall into the families of customer satisfaction is kind of the happy talk metrics. How do I feel? Effort is what I call the Goldilocks questions. Is it just right or is it too much? And Net Promoter Score is kind of the keep your fingers crossed questions. You're hoping that people will, or you want people to be able to give you a recommendation to their friends and neighbors, so that they will endorse people using your brand. And of course, how people feel about things is really, really important, because when they do feel good about a brand, they become advocates. And think about how people feel about brands like Apple or Zappos, and so that effort and that goes into finding out sentiment, and sentiment itself is really, really important. But the tough part about sentiment is that sometimes you might not get the kind of information that you can really use to actually manage your technology. For example, what are you going to learn from somebody who's disappointed or who has had a negative experience, either with technology or with a product? But with technology in particular, if somebody chooses to give you feedback, chances are what you're going to get is out of date. It's going to be impressions of what really happened. Clearly it's going to be subjective and going to be emotional. It might be difficult to actually come up with what do I need to do better? What do I need to change in order to provide a better customer service experience? And so there's another way to think about measuring customer experience, and that might be to ask the technology that the customer was engaging with. And that's where the working as designed or WAD family of metrics comes into play. And WAD, of course, is important. You get your WAD metrics from your native operational, administrative, and management tools, or you get it from an overlay set of functionality that looks at everything. And of course, you learn about things that are very important in the contact center space, that are very important in customer interaction. Things like mean opinion score and whether or not your equipment is running full bore, doesn't have a chance of keeping up if a little bit more traffic comes in. All those things are very important, because in the real world, it's important that you not always be reacting after the fact. You need to know what's going on so that you can move yourself up the operations maturity progression that Gartner has proposed, and come out of the area where you're nothing but reactive because you don't know what's happening until after it's happened. So these first two perspectives, the sentiment, how do people feel, and the second one, how is my technology doing, really important. But the challenge with the WAD metrics is that really what you're asking is, what was your technology's experience with your customer, as opposed to what your customer's experience with your technology was. And if you count on just your technology telling you what's going on, you might be oblivious to a problem in the real world. And a good example of that is one that we've probably all encountered in a self-service engagement, where you dial into an environment, go through the three different elements of self-service customer experience, of identification and authentication, and then operation. But then instead what you get is irritation, where the system comes back to you and says, I'm sorry, that information isn't available right now. From a WAD perspective, the contact center is doing everything that it's supposed to do, and it's doing it effectively and efficiently, but the customer experience that was delivered still isn't the one that was anticipated, even though everything is working very effectively and efficiently. And if something like that happens, are customers going to give you a pass? Are they going to say, I'll bet the equipment is really tapped out and it's just not keeping up, and that's okay? And of course, we know that's not the case. that kind of experience isn't going to work for customers. And so what's really important is that customer experience. And that brings me to this third perspective of thinking like a customer, and actually going back to those three pillars of availability, functionality, and performance, and thinking about a customer who might be trying to use a contact center to do something. And when they try to use it, it's not there, or when they try to use it, it takes so long for a system to respond, or it's reprompting when it's not supposed to. You've designed the kind of experience that you intend customers to have, and what you need to figure out is whether or not the experience being delivered is the experience that you intended. And it is a challenge to find out until you start thinking like a customer, and actually acting like a customer, and testing the experience that's really delivered. And that's how we came up with this concept of active testing, of testing the customer service experience to ensure that that those three pillars of customer experience are really there. So the proposal that I have here is that when you think like a customer and think about those things that people are trying to do, and then act like a customer and do them, you can actually be the customer and try things out. Try out the technology in the contact center just like a mystery shopper or a secret shopper would try out the experience within a store or on an airline. We've all heard stories about that. Here in the States, we even have the concept of Undercover Boss, a big TV show where maybe the CEO goes out and tries out the experience within his environment to find out what's really happening when people try to try to exist within the environment. With active testing, you really can be the customer with the generation of outside-in automated transactions that access, interact with, and exercise contact center technology, and add this critical third perspective, so that just like a mystery shopper, you can walk in through the front door of the contact center and be the customer and experience all the complexities and the functionality that is the contact center. Contact centers are really complex environments, from the access over multiple channels through the security elements into the applications and functionality, all the different things that have to be integrated properly, sized properly, and balanced properly, so that different customers can do the things that they want to do to keep their lives running every day. A typical contact center is built with components from anywhere from 8 to 15 to maybe 20 different vendors, and integrated together in a way that allows people to do things across multiple channels and lead their lives without having to wait in line to talk to an agent. And the challenge with all the complexity in the contact center and all the technology in the contact center is that there's tripping points out there that are hiding and that may not be obvious to you unless you actually try to use it like a customer, but know what's supposed to happen when you use it. And that's where this active testing process comes along. It'll identify issues that you didn't expect. And nobody builds a system that they don't expect to work well. And sometimes there are just issues related to integrations. There are issues that might exist that you just simply don't know about. And if you think about it, your customer doesn't typically know how the system is supposed to work. And so they may not recognize an issue when they encounter it. They may think that they entered the wrong digit or dialed the wrong number or whatever it is. And so having an active testing process that knows what to expect and knows what's supposed to happen, so that it can identify deviations from expectations, can really help you along this line of measuring customer experience, managing customer experience, and doing the things that need to be done so that you deliver the experience you intend. And active testing comes in really handy at all the various stages of the contact center life cycle, starting with a new installation, on with day-to-day operations, and even as you go through the process of updating and upgrading your equipment that happens on a regular basis. So let's talk a little bit about active testing and what it might mean in these different stages of the contact center technology life cycle. So in the new installation world, one of the things that's really important is to make sure that the system can handle the load that it's going to be subjected to, particularly during peak busy hour. And there's 4 different elements to stress testing, and to make sure that the system can handle the absolute number of interactions that customers are going to throw at it, as well as the velocity of those interactions that customers are going to throw at it. And so testing specifically around capacity to make sure that all the different interactions can be handled. One of the key things that we often identify during stress test engagements is that all of the carrier interactions can't be handled. All the ports or the channels really aren't there, or if they are there, that the equipment that's been provisioned to handle the inbound traffic can't run at the velocity that the traffic is going to be coming in at. It's really important, especially in the voice over IP world, to check not just the number of concurrent calls in terms of a system that's been designed to handle 500 or 700 concurrent calls can actually handle it, but also can process calls coming and going at, say, 12 calls a second or 20 calls a second, or whatever your expected peak load is, and the peak call arrival and teardown rate. In the IP world, tearing down a call puts as much load on a system as setting one up, and it's important to make sure that you don't end up with hung calls within your equipment, because you'll gradually erode capacity over time, and you need to make sure that the system can run for an extended period of time at that full load, and that the applications, the CTI applications, the IVR applications, all the routing and, for example, speech recognition technology that might be built into the environment really does perform the way that you expect it to when the system is running at full load for an extended period of time. So performance over the long run is an important thing to find out before you turn a system live. The last thing you want is to turn on a system and have everything seem to work well while traffic is at a relatively low level, and when you get into peak busy hour for the first time, the system falls flat on its back. That in fact is the scenario behind how our company got started, but that's a different story. Another element of stress testing, particularly when there's high availability architectures engaged, is resilience. And one of the things that we suggest people do is subject their system to a peak traffic load, and then perform fault injection against a particular schedule. And by fault injection, what I mean is doing something like disabling a service or disconnecting a network segment or taking a server out of play, and then watching how the traffic is handled by the environment. And it's all about expectations. Does the system continue to process traffic the way that you expect it to and want it to under those circumstances? Watching the system degrade is extremely important, because you want to make sure that you don't disappoint your customers if you happen to have compromised operation. And just as important as watching how the system goes through a degradation event is putting the system back into service. Put that network segment back in, restart the service, bring the disabled server back online, and see if the system comes back to full capacity and then starts processing calls again or browsers in the same fashion that it was. The stress testing activity that we conduct is really the most fun because of the kind of issues that we identify related to, as I said, capacity and performance, and the things that get identified can be really head scratchers, but with the testing, at least you have a chance to identify the issue before it's impacting your customer experience. Now, in the contact center, one of the key elements of the contact center, of course, is self-service in the IVR world. And another element of testing that is really, really important is automated feature function testing. And the key word here is automated. Automated feature function testing is a process whereby you create a test case that represents every possible path through an IVR application, and there could be hundreds or even thousands of those test cases. And what's really important about automated feature function testing is that because it's an automated process rather than a manual process, you've got a much better chance of getting through and getting reliable documentation for every one of those hundreds or thousands of test case options. along with data that helps you understand what actually went wrong if something goes wrong. Transcripts of the audio that was heard, transcripts of the dialogue, along with recordings, so that whoever has to fix the applications actually has the opportunity to hear what was happening without having to replicate the issue and try to make it happen again. That can be one of the biggest challenges of manual testing, is recreating an event if you don't have throw discrepancy documentation. Now, once the system's gone into production, you're counting on it being out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, facing customers and providing the intended experience over and over again, hundreds of thousands of times a day, maybe even millions of times a day, depending upon how large your environment is and how big your customer base is. One of the things that active testing brings to the program is this actively testing the experience on an ongoing basis every 5 minutes or 10 minutes using automated secret shoppers. And the process that we have for that is called heartbeat experience testing, that runs against multiple channels into the contact center space. And what it's doing is sampling and reporting upon the customer service experience delivered by contact center technology against a background of everyday production traffic. The theory is that an automated interaction doing something that customers really do, checking account balance, trying to find out when the plane's going to leave, in an insurance environment, finding out when the claim's going to be paid. All of those things can be tested using an automated process and then extrapolated to what real customers doing the same thing at the same time would be experiencing. And with around-the-clock accessing and interacting with self-service technology, you can build yourself a very thorough database of how customers are being treated, whether or not technology goes through any kind of periodic slowdown based on high traffic periods at different times of the day. The other thing that heartbeat experience testing does for you is confirm that the self-service technology you're counting on 24 hours a day is really there all night long and is ready before peak load comes on during the day, and is working perhaps through the weekend without having to have somebody dialing into the environment or logging into a website to see what's going on. Heartbeat experience testing will automatically try out all that technology and make sure that availability, functionality, and performance are what you expect them to be, and generate issues if any kind of, or generate alerts if any kind of issues are detected, because it knows exactly what to expect. It doesn't dial the wrong phone number. It doesn't have any question as to what's supposed to happen after I press a 6. It knows exactly what's supposed to be there and how long it's supposed to take. And so heartbeat experience testing can identify those issues with the customer experience should they show up, and let you know about it so that you can do something about it. Now, complementing experience testing is prognosis experience management, which is a comprehensive operational, administrative, and management overlay for your environment that can provide end-to-end visibility within your environment. And one of the cool things that IR brings to the table is that with heartbeat experience testing, we can proactively identify issues and tag those issues so that a call can be made into the prognosis experience management environment with the issues tagged, and immediately identify the elements from the environment that were involved in a telephone call that encountered an issue, so that you don't have to go on a treasure hunt to try to dig up all that information. And so the integration of outside-in testing, providing the customer experience, and the inside-out management providing the technology experience, really provides you a 360-degree view of what's going on with your technology and how it's impacting your customer. It's a really cool integration, one that we have fun with. The other thing that happens in the contact center space, and this is true for all of us, is that the things change. Nothing ever stays the same. There's periodic updates and upgrades that occur, whether it's a patch update or an upgrade to a CM module or just updates to routers. So we've got this concept of release management assurance around contact center technology, the idea that after something has changed within the environment, whether it's a change to an application or an extension of capability or perhaps an expansion of capacity, health checks are really important to make sure that the changes that were made didn't do anything to adversely affect the customer experience. So one element of a health check might be a stress test to make sure that all elements of the contact center took the upgrade, and after an update that might happen, say, at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, that the system really is ready to go live and handle full boat traffic on Monday morning. Regression testing of an IVR application is also very important. IVR applications are often extended or tweaked a bit in response to customer interaction and what customers are really using within the environment. And so applications are always being tweaked just a bit, and one of the things that's important to find out is whether or not any kind of a tweak had any adverse impact on the rest of the environment. And so whenever there's a change to an IVR application, running automated feature function testing to make sure that you've tested 100% of the twists and turns through the IVR application is a really important thing to do and a really efficient thing to do to make sure that any kind of changes within the environment haven't adversely impacted an element of the environment that you hadn't expected to. And the third element of active testing related to updates, upgrades, and anticipated peak loads is focused heartbeat experience testing, where key applications that you expect to come into play, maybe because of a marketing campaign that might be driving load through a particular new leg of an IVR application, you want to make sure from an automated process that however that application is working in response to customers calling in, that it is providing the experience that you intend, that people aren't responding to some kind of a promotion and then being disappointed because the system isn't available, or when they try to log their information, they have to wait 20 or 30 seconds between inputs. And so having focused heartbeat experience testing applied to changes within the environment is a really important of release management assurance. When you provide, when you go through a comprehensive process of stress testing, of feature function testing, and then focused heartbeat testing once the system is put into production, you can be guaranteed that the customer experience delivered is the one that you expect, and that availability, functionality, and performance are what you intend them to be. Now, by way of summary, what I talked about here today was that there's really three different ways to think about customer experience and to get feedback on customer experience. And as I said, one of them is the voice of the customer approach to getting information, finding out how do customers really feel. Do they like what you're doing? Will they do it? Will they do it again? Will they suggest to their friends that they use your brand, interact with your brand? There's asking your technology about how it's behaving under the onslaught of customer interaction and all the different things that customers try to do every day. And then there's active testing, not just measuring your technology's experience with the customers, but actively testing the experience delivered by your technology so you know what happens when customers try to interact with your system. And by focusing on that active testing process and thinking like a customer and thinking about those three elements of customer experience, availability, functionality, and performance, you can get tangible and factual data that allows you to tweak the customer experience, to correct issues with your technology that might exist within the environment, so that you can be sure that the experience your contact center technology is delivering is the one that you intend. And if you deliver the experience that you intend, you should have happy customers who are thrilled to be working with your brand and using the contact center technology to do the things that they need to do every day to make sure that they're to get the things done that they need to do in their lives. So, with that, Stephen, I've made it to the end of the session. How are we doing out there? Have we been able to stimulate any questions from the audience today?
Yeah, we have a few questions, and if you do have any questions, please remember just to navigate your way to the questions tab and let us know. I also want to let you know that the attachments today, the presentation is available under the attachments link, and you can also see a bit of information about IR there as well. So the first question for you, Mike, is what's the difference between load testing and experience testing?
Yes. It has to do with phase, and load testing is generally event-driven. It's focused on things like a new system implementation or a change in the underlying environment, maybe an extension of functionality or an expansion of capacity. Or maybe some kind of a transition in technology, like an environment that is changing over from a TDM environment to a SIP environment with SBCs being installed, for example. So stress testing is about making sure that the total system really will function at peak load for an extended period of time. It's something on the order of a test flight, making sure that that the plane will stay in the air without the wings falling off when it's fully loaded and subjected to some turbulence. Experience testing, on the other hand, is periodic interactions every 5 minutes or 10 minutes, accessing and interacting with contact center technology like a mystery shopper, and making sure that those three pillars of customer experience, availability, functionality, and performance, are there on an ongoing basis so that people who are trying to use a contact center to do the things that they do every day can actually do what they want to do and do so effectively and efficiently. With stress testing, people learn a lot about what would happen under the most extreme conditions so that they have an opportunity to address them before the system is put in production. Experience testing, on the other hand, is making sure that on an ongoing basis against a background of normal production, everyday traffic, that the system really is there doing the things that it's supposed to do and doing them effectively and efficiently.
Okay, great. We have a couple more questions for you, Mike. Is there anything I would need to do to my system so we can test customer experience?
With the type of testing that we're proposing in this session, the answer is no. There's nothing that has to be done to tweak the contact center technology. The way we create the interactions and really what we suggest people do is test things the way people are going to use them. And if you think about it, when you dial into an airline or you call into a bank, you don't care what's out there. You don't know what the manufacturer is. You just want to know if it's there when you want to use it, if it does the things that you want it to do, and that it does them effectively and efficiently. And that's the kind of testing that we're talking about conducting, is thinking like a customer so that you can act like a customer and then do the things that customers really do, rather than thinking from the inside out and just trying to make sure that the systems are happy, if you will. Thinking like a customer and working from the outside in means it's all configured, it's set up, it's ready to run. Let's see what it does.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Mike. I think that ends our session today. Obviously, if anybody on the call would like to find out more, please let us know or contact IR directly. I think in the presentation pack you can download. There's a bit of information there. We do have another upcoming webinar, so check out Bright Talk for that. And I think we've included some contact details here. There's Mike and myself, our emails, and some contact detail. So with that, I'll bring the webinar to a close and ask you to look out for other webinars from IR. We hope you enjoyed the webinar this evening, and thank you for joining. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome, and thanks to everybody out there for your interest and your attention today. Look forward to following up with folks. Take care and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.